There are moments in life when everything feels stable, when the future seems predictable, safe, and within our control. But sometimes, everything can collapse from just one bad decision. This is the story of Daniel, a man whose life changed in a single night. Not because of fate, or luck, or tragedy, but because of a moment of weakness that cost him everything. Daniel was what you'd call a success story. By his early 30s, he had a loving wife, Sarah, 2 bright kids, and a career he had built from the ground up. He was a project manager at a top engineering firm, known for his sharp mind and unwavering integrity. His life was a carefully constructed building, each brick laid with hard work and dedication. He had the respect of his colleagues, the love of his family, and a future that looked as solid as the foundations he designed. He thought he had it all figured out. He was in control, but control can be an illusion. One Thursday evening, Daniel was working late, putting the final touches on a massive proposal for a new city bridge. This project was his baby, the culmination of years of effort. Winning it would mean a promotion, a huge bonus, and securing his legacy at the firm. The pressure was immense. As he stared at the complex blueprints, his phone buzzed. It was a text from an old college friend, Mark. In town, for one night only. Drinks at the Oak Room. You have to come. Daniel hesitated. He was exhausted. He had promised Sarah he'd be home early, but the thought of a single drink, a brief escape from the crushing weight of the proposal, was tempting. Mark was always the life of the party, the one who could pull Daniel out of his own head. Just one drink, he told himself. What harm could it do? He texted Sarah, "Work is running late. Don't wait up." It was a small lie, but it was the first crack in the foundation. At the Oak Room, the atmosphere was electric. The low hum of conversation, the clinking of glasses, it was a world away from his sterile office. Mark greeted him with a bear hug, and the first drink went down smoothly. Then the second. Mark introduced him to a man named Mr. Vargas, a charismatic businessman with a sharp suit and an even sharper smile. Vargas was charming, full of praise for Daniel's work, which he seemed to know a surprising amount about. He mentioned he was an investor with a keen interest in infrastructure projects. As the night wore on and the drinks kept flowing, the conversation turned to the bridge project. Fueled by alcohol and a desire to impress, Daniel started talking, more than he should have. He boasted about his innovative design, the unique materials he planned to use, the competitive edge his company had. Mr. Vargas listened intently, asking probing questions that Daniel, in his inebriated state, was all too happy to answer. He felt important, admired. He was the star of the show. Then, Vargas made an offer. He represented a rival company that was also bidding on the bridge project. He laid it on the table, a briefcase full of cash in exchange for a few key details from Daniel's proposal. Just enough to level the playing field, Vargas said with a wink. A man of your talent deserves more than just a salary. Think of it as a consulting fee. For a sober Daniel, this would have been an immediate, an absolute no. It went against every principle he held. But this wasn't sober Daniel. This was a man swimming in whiskey and flattery, his judgment clouded, his ego inflated. The briefcase sat on the table between them, a dark promise of an easier life. He thought of his mortgage, of his kids' college funds, of the financial freedom it could bring. He looked at Vargas's confident smile and saw a shortcut. In a moment of profound weakness, a moment he would replay in his mind for years to come, Daniel agreed. He took the briefcase. The walk of shame home was a blur. The next morning, Daniel woke up with a pounding headache and a heart full of dread. The briefcase of money felt like a lead weight in his closet. What had he done? The guilt was immediate and suffocating. He tried to rationalize it. No one would ever know. It was a one-time thing. He could use the money for his family, but the lies only made him feel worse. At work, he avoided eye contact. Every conversation felt like an interrogation. He went through the motions, submitting the proposal, but the passion was gone, replaced by a gnawing anxiety. A week later, the announcement came. His company had lost the bid. The rival firm had won. Their proposal eerily similar to his, but with a slightly lower cost. His boss called him into the office. The look on his face was one of deep disappointment. An internal investigation had been launched. Whispers had turned into accusations. Someone had tipped them off. Daniel's late nights, his sudden sleep, faced with irrefutable evidence of a data breach originating from his computer, Daniel confessed. He had too. The lie had become too heavy to carry. The fallout was catastrophic. He was fired immediately, his professional reputation destroyed overnight. News traveled fast in their industry, and he was blacklisted. The career he had spent a decade building was gone. But that was only the beginning. When he finally confessed to Sarah, Her face was a mixture of shock, betrayal, and a deep, profound sadness. The man she had built a life with, the man she trusted completely, was a stranger. The trust that had been the bedrock of their marriage was shattered. She asked him to leave. Suddenly, Daniel was alone. He lost his job, his wife, his home. His kids were confused and hurt, unable to understand why their father was suddenly gone. He moved into a cheap, soulless apartment on the other side of town. The silence was deafening, broken only by the echoes of his own regret. He tried to find work, but his name was poison. He took a low-paying job at a warehouse, the physical labor a grim penance for his moral failure. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The man who once designed bridges was now just stacking boxers, invisible. He saw pictures of his family on social media, birthdays he missed, holidays he wasn't a part of. Each photo was a fresh stab of pain. He had traded all his family's love, his self-respect, his entire future for a briefcase of money that he never even spent. It was still hidden in his closet, a monument to his monumental mistake. One evening, staring at his reflection in the dark window of his apartment, Daniel hit rock bottom. The despair was a physical weight, pressing down on him. He felt utterly worthless, a ghost haunting the ruins of his own life. The thought that maybe it would be easier if he just was here at all flickered in his mind. It was a dark and dangerous path. But in that moment of absolute darkness, another thought emerged, a tiny spark of the man he used to be. The fighter, the builder. He had built a life once. Maybe, just maybe, he could build another one. It wouldn't be the same. It would be harder, and the foundation would be built on the rubble of his past mistakes. But it had to be better than this emptiness. It started with a single step. He reached out to a therapist, finally talking about the guilt and shame that had been consuming him. It was hard, painful work, but slowly he began to forgive himself. He wrote a long, honest letter to Sarah, not asking for forgiveness, but simply explaining everything, taking full responsibility for the pain he had caused. He started volunteering, using his old skills to help a local charity design a new community center. It wasn't a prestigious bridge project, but it was something. It was a way to give back, a way to rebuild, not just structures, but his sense of purpose. The road to redemption is not a straight line. It's a long, winding path, with setbacks and moments of doubt. Daniel's story isn't over. He may never get back everything he lost, but he is rebuilding piece by painful piece. His story is a stark reminder that our lives are a series of choices, and sometimes one bad choice, one moment of weakness, can change everything. But it also shows us that even after the collapse, even when you're standing in the ruins, it is possible to pick up a single brick and start again. If you or someone you know is struggling with overwhelming feelings of guilt, regret, or despair, please know that you are not alone and help is available. Reaching out to a mental health professional or a crisis hotline can be the first step toward rebuilding. It's a sign of strength, not weakness. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. We'll see you in the next one.